Back on MorningLine, presidential politics, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, the polls, the number 737-7587. Your thoughts, questions, comments. We'll open it up because it's that time of year. It's all politics. And as I said, Sam will be next. Good morning, Sam.
Yes. My name is Sam. I'm a United States Air Force veteran.
Yes, Sam.
And we're talking about someone running to be our commander-in-chief. And I have a real problem with someone that doesn't respect our prisoners of wars. I'm not a big McCain fan. McCain was captured and was trying to do a job as an American military person. And if you have someone that doesn't have enough respect to honor that individual, how in the world can they be called the commander-in-chief of the military? They don't understand the military. And my father was in the military. I was in the military. I did 2 tours in Vietnam, and I'm just appalled that someone would want to be my commander-in-chief but has no respect for someone that gave their life and was captured.
Mm-hmm.
That's my comment.
Sam, thank you for your call. And of course, he is referring to Donald Trump. And I think we've noticed that much of what Donald Trump seems to be, pretty much he's immune to the reaction to whatever the fallout is. But I think if he was injured on something, and of course he's referencing there the comment right. Donald Trump made a while back that he doesn't support or think much of people who get captured, which to me when I heard it was absurd, talking about John McCain, who was a prisoner of war, which was awful. But I do believe Donald Trump was also injured, and I'm guessing Sam objected to him going after the Khan family.
Right.
After the speech, and you have a soldier that died in combat, and that injured him among the military, many like Sam, who typically, I think, vote Republican, and that you don't go there.
It was one of the worst cases of armchair quarterbacking in history. Mm-hmm. Both, the Khans and McCains, and I will say, Sam may know, but Trump did sort of backtrack the last week on, John McCain. He's, as he did both on Ryan and McCain.
Finally endorsing
but the damage, the damage had largely been done.
Sure. But when it comes to the military in this country these days, as Sam said, and as a veteran, he knows. I think there has to be a level of respect. You also hear, and I wonder what Sam would think in some of the military. Many of the rank and file sometimes seem to like, when we deal with terrorists and stuff, the idea of bringing waterboarding back and all this, which Donald Trump says, heck yeah, let's waterboard. But again, if you're in the military, you recognize if your country is going to start engaging in this type of activity, just wait till you get captured.
Absolutely.
And it's going to come down on you. Maybe that's happening anywhere. But I'm just comments when it comes to the military, you have to address it. But those can be damaging if it appears as though you're going after veterans who have served this country, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's go next to Debbie. Hi, Debbie.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's on your mind?
Lord, it's just so hard for me to watch these political shows on TV day after day after day. And the only candidate, Hillary Clinton, that's running, that's even mentioned the problem with the prescription drugs and Medicare, she's the only one that's even addressed it, saying that they're going to revisit that, relook at that. When they privatized it back in 06, 07, was the biggest mistake they ever made. They absolutely turned it over. Big Pharma must have wrote the bill and handed it to the GOP. This is what we want. We want all control over pricing. Mm-hmm. And I guess they said yes. When I noticed when the bill passed, they were shaking George Bush's hand, and I thought they'd won the lottery. Well, they did win the lottery. They did. Why they didn't turn those prescription drugs for people on Medicare, which is, and I get so mad at them talking about all these old people on Medicare. Medicare's not just in people that are over 60, over 65. Medicare's disabled people.
Oh, sure. Yeah, you bring up a good point, and it's interesting. Yes, thank you. We focus on some of the comments, some superficial, the economy and all this, but there are other voters going to be looking at other issues, be it prescription drugs, Medicare.
And I guess it's sort of the flaw in democracy, and there's nothing better, but when you go in to vote, you have a whole menu of issues, and we've seen it in the calls. Is it foreign policy? Is it experience? Is it temperament? is it healthcare?
Sure.
And for each of us have a little bit, our menus, something's a little bit higher on the list than others.
No.
But ultimately we have a choice of, A or B, or, Republican or Democrat, and that's where we are.
And ultimately,
a couple third parties in there.
In general, though, ultimately when it comes to elections, do the American voters vote around one specific issue more than any other, that being their pocketbook?
Well,
Is that it?
The most famous words, I guess, in recent American politics are James Carville's, "It's the economy, stupid." And often that's the case. A lot of times elections are referenda on where we are right now.
Yeah, that's
and,
right. That's
you
right.
have very different narratives.
So if the economy is going well and people are sitting pretty, then maybe they're going to be looking at national security, or they'll look at some other social issues, things like that.
Well, and if you're basically approve of what's happened in the Obama administration, Clinton looks pretty good. If you think the country's going to hell in a handbasket, not so much. Then you're more likely to vote for the opposition.
And I think a lot of people sometimes sit back and they can ask this question that anyone can answer themselves. You say, am I better off today than I was 4 or 8 years ago?
Right.
And I think the answer for most people would be, a little bit of both. Am I better off from 4 years ago? In some ways, yes. In some ways, not so much.
Well, and it varies a lot by class. It varies a lot by region. And so you'll see, a lot of appeal right now in the Rust Belt.
Yeah.
Areas of high unemployment, good disconnect. You had the same thing in 1880s and 1890s. You had the populist party that developed in the agrarian West, where prices were going down and farmers were really feeling the heat. And some of the most important third parties in history have been these economic protest parties, like your populists and to some degree the progressives as well.
Let's go next to Grady. Hi, Grady. Good morning.
Good morning, then,
Good to hear from you, Grady.
Well, I think back to Hughes and all the honest politician that said, I know how to steal from you. You put these new fellows in there and they'll rob you blind. At least he was honest. Reagan had enough sense to go over and tear down the wall, and Trump wants to go build one. Where's the difference? But, when Obama come in there 8 years ago, he had a mess on his hand. The economy, the Republicans were sending jobs to other countries, and at least he has created an economy and also reduced the unemployment a little bit. And I'll hang up with y'all's comment.
It's always nice to hear from Grady, a longtime viewer who, Grady, your voice sounds stronger every day. He's recovering from some health issues, and I really appreciate hearing it. Grady's a good person. He mentioned Ronald Reagan. And remember, one of Reagan's famous lines, in the days of campaigning is, "Thou shalt not speak ill of another Republican." And I'm just curious if Ronald Reagan, who, of course, is one of the most respected presidents of our time, was here today and was seeing his Republican candidate and what some of the reaction from fellow Republicans was, what would your guess be to the way he might react?
I think he would express concern at the least.
You think so? Because I remember that line he said, but this is a different
the 11th
time.
commandment,
It's a different, that was right, the 11th commandment with Ronald Reagan. You think he might, because he, in his way, heck, some of the Republicans from back then and are more like Democrats today.
They are.
It's amazing how things have changed.
This is really, the more things change, the more they stay the same. It's bad. But we've had many, not that I remember the election of 1800, contrary to what some of my students think, but, you had one side accusing the other of being, radical revolutionaries, and the other side was accusing the Federalists of being monarchists, and of course neither was true, and we got through it, so hopefully we'll make it through this one as well.
This country always finds a way to survive. Let's go to Cindy. Hi, Cindy.
Hi, how are you?
Good, Cindy. What's on your mind?
I am a strong Trump supporter. I thought he spoke excellent yesterday and gave us the plan. And I believe that plan will work because anytime I drive into Antioch, and believe it or not, Nashville, I got bums or coming up to me. Antioch I wouldn't even go to no more. And every day when I watch the news, I see other businesses closing shops.
Yeah. And so you think Donald Trump will be able to find a way to salvage some of these businesses and find a way to people, look at him as a businessman, but, I mean, isn't his Taj Mahal in Atlantic City about to shut down?
Well, he has such vast holdings. And, one of the most fascinating things is what would, if he were elected, how would he, in fact, separate himself? I mean, I'm assuming he would put everything in a blind trust, but particularly if his children continued running the businesses, it would be, you'd have to be very naive to think that he would make decisions without some knowledge of how they would impact his own concerns. So, and that could be good or bad.
You really wonder about that. I think about Donald Trump in this, and I don't know really what he thinks on his own at night when he's sitting back getting ready to hit the sack, but to me, whatever happens in this political election, he has already won. He has won. If he becomes president, obviously he's president, and that's a win. If he doesn't win, he has won in so many other ways. The name recognition, the power, the prestige that comes with the fact that he got this far, what it means for his business interests, what it means for everything else. He's going to make money on this deal.
Lawyers are often accused of this, that if they run for office and they lose, they still get more clients because you say, oh, well, that was, he must be something or she must be something. They wouldn't be running for office. And one does wonder what this will do to the Trump brand. Now, I will say politically, the jury's still out because if there's a Democratic landslide, I think Trump is going to, he's put himself out there. He's almost by himself. He's going to take the credit, but he's also going to get stuck with the blame if there's a real loss.
You think that politically, if he suffered a severe loss, and we don't know if that'll happen, but that it would damage his brand?
I don't know so much about his business brand, but in terms of someone running in a similar manner again, if he were to lose by a landslide, I think probably people would learn a lesson.
Interesting. But as I said, I firmly believe whatever happens with Donald Trump, he has already won. Let's go next to Charles. Hi, Charles.
Yeah.
Good morning. What's on your mind?
Yeah. I just wonder how naive, ignorant voters have become. Because you listen to Trump, he's talking to people like he's you're a kindergarten student or something. Have you ever noticed that? Do you realize the things that he's saying and what he's trying to, instill in people? Are we that naive, that dumb?
No, here's the thing, and I hear where he's coming from. He says so many outlandish things, but I know many individuals who I consider to be intelligent people, good people, that are going to vote for him. And I think that they recognize, too, some of what he says is outlandish, but for whatever reason, it doesn't bother them because all their mind is, one, either they just can't stand Hillary, or second, they just want to change from an outsider no matter who it is. Doesn't matter. May not have been their favorite first choice, but it doesn't matter because I hear what he's saying. You're like, how could someone possibly do? If you're an intelligent person, you hear some of these things, it's got to scare you, and yet there are some good, intelligent people that are going to vote for him. How do you explain that?
Well, if we go back to the third-party phenomenon, probably the person that comes closest is Ross Perot. He sort of came in without any, billionaire, came in without any real political experience, and initially just had this retinue of, I'm going to get under the hood, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. Sounded very, very practical.
Just different sounding.
Yeah, and I think that's some of the appeal of Trump.
No doubt about it.
And disadvantage as well. The question is, where's the beef? Is there a policy below it? And, I think, yesterday's attempt at giving a talk on economics is a good start with, the kind of thing that a candidate needs to do.
So many American voters, though, these days, they like the sound bites. Don't bother me with the details. Just give me the big picture. And and that's dangerous. All right, we'll take a break. We'll be back with more of your phone calls, 737-7587. If you want to jump in, our final segment talking presidential politics, the latest, the polls, and what happens next right after this.